after Colony 195, and after Operation Meteor, nothing was ever the same. 5 mobile suits changed the entire power balance, and Oz was starting to lose ground. But the Zodiac still had an ace under its belt. A close combat, red-colored, winged Gundam. The Gundam Epyon! The first word that comes to my mind when talking about Gundam Wing definitely has to be style. I don't really remember much about the story, yet I can perfectly picture the mobile suits and even the characters. So much personality was poured directly into the designs. Many can even argue that the Wing Gundam from Endless Waltz is one of the most iconic Gundam designs, just a tad below the original grandfather RX-78-2. Yet, I never liked the Wing Gundam. The Epyon though, that's more of my jam. A blood-red Gundam with a massive sword that transforms into a 2-headed dragon? Hell yeah! This is an edgy teenager's dream mobile suit. Now, the Epyon is in fact much more than that. Designed by Kunio Okawara, it really is something akin to the antithesis of the Wing Gundam. The color scheme is almost the opposite, with red hues covering most of the body and leaving only minor spaces in white. Instead of having a weapon that excels in long-range combat, the Epyon has a massive sword connected directly into its power core to ensure maximum output and damage. It also has a smaller shield that also happens to keep a whip inside. But what has to be the most glaring evidence of being an inverted Wing Gundam is the wing design. Gone are the mechanical thrusters that look like bird wings, and in its place are 2 huge bat or even demonic looking wings. Where the wing was designed to provoke admiration and awe in its opponents, the Epyon was designed to instill fear and unease. Now, speaking specifically of the model kit, the Gundam Epyon is the 38th release of Bandai's Real Grade line, and to say that this line has come a long way is probably an understatement. The build is simple, with nothing being too weird or repetitive, and even though there are very little parts, nothing feels fragile or loose. And even though the kit may seem back heavy, there are certain ways that you can pose the wings to counterbalance it so that it doesn't fall back, even for action poses. The Real Grade line has definitely become the best line for action poses, thanks in part for its newer engineering processes and the fact that the small parts make the kit lighter. As for the transformation, it is super smooth and unproblematic. And that's only because you mostly only need to move the legs backward. I mean, it may not look the best if you see it from the back or from the bottom, but there are certain angles that look fantastic. Nothing beats the look of a flying 2-headed dragon. Having said that, let's proceed and answer what makes the Gundam Epyon the Gundam Epyon. Starting with the head, and as I said before, the Epyon resembles a lot the construction of the Wing's head, only with inverted colors and a single V-fin. We still have the camera in the head mohawk, and the ears or side protection is also elongated towards the back. The face mask has the classic 2 vents, and a red chin is very visible. As for the predominant colors, we have a bluish black and a very purple magenta or red, making the white mouthpiece stand out even more. And interestingly, since the eyes and other cameras are green, I'm pretty sure that Okawara knew that red and green are complementary colors, which in turn makes the eyes pop out tremendously. Moving down a little bit, the same color scheme of dark blue and dark red remains through the upper torso. In fact, the only pops of other colors are the white and green orb at the center of the chest and the yellow vents on the sides. Now, here is where we can definitely see the magnitude of the demon wings. These parts are gigantic and with enough color and part separation that makes them look like actual mechanical wings instead of two pieces of dangling plastic. The shoulders are very prominent also, with its size rivaling the entire torso, thus making the arms look a little bit on the small side. But make no mistake, the arms are very well proportioned, with the forearms being a little bit bigger thanks in part to the yellow Epyon claws. And while it may be anime accurate, the all grey hands do look a little bit dull. And to end the upper part, we have the waist skirt that, considering the flamboyance of the entire suit, it is actually very conservative, with smaller flaps in the sides, a mostly blue back part that separates for the transformation, two equally blue front flaps, and a centerpiece that, if you have a lot of imagination, kind of looks like a red mini dragon tail. This kind of makes a little bit more sense considering that that part does indeed transform into the dragon's torso. Moving down even further, the upper legs feature the biggest light parts with the thighs colored in a bone-like white, yet in all its glorious edginess, the red knee armor has a blade that goes almost to the waist armor and breaks the solid white hue. In fact, almost from the knee to the toes, the legs are broken down into something akin to scale-like armor layers that give the Epyon a very medieval knight look. Well, fantasy medieval knight look. It is here at the leg level that we can fully comprehend the magnitude and scale of the wings. And finally, the two dragon heads that disguise themselves at the feet of the mobile suit are something so absurd and so magnificent that can only be called a wonderful design choice. Speaking of the two-headed dragon, the transformation to the mobile armor mode is very simple. Yet, it's that same simplicity that makes the transformation suffer from the all-so-familiar bent Gundam syndrome. While the shield and whip do manage to look like the animal's tail, and even the Epyon's arms can more or less pass as the dragon's hoofs, there's no real place to hide the head, so the best thing you can do is move it down like it's ashamed, and mostly it will be okay. Now, this doesn't mean that the two-headed dragon looks bad. In fact, quite the opposite. It looks absolutely amazing and with no loose parts. You can even use the claws as a landing gear and it won't fall over. Is it the best transformation ever? Probably not. Does it look sufficiently cool to bypass the Vent Gundam syndrome? That's definitely a yes. Epyon doesn't have that many accessories. It only comes with a cable plug, the beam saber effect, the beam saber hilt, the shield, whip tail, extra hands, and base adapters. That may seem quite rickety, yet in the anime we don't see that many more equipment add-ons, so, well, it is what it is. One thing I will say is that the whip-like tail structure is fantastic. It moves much more than I thought it would, and it holds its shape very well. Considering that it's the only one that came in the advanced joint runner, only time will tell if it keeps its shape. Immediately after I saw the humongous beam saber sword, I knew that I had to do some dynamic pose with it. As I said on my Zeta Verka video, I don't really like talking about the articulation of a figure. Why is that? Well, because I believe that articulation works best when it has a pose in mind. Can the figure move well enough to replicate some of its most iconic looks, or even an iconic look from another franchise? That was my thought, and I don't know if you're familiar with the anime Dino Daiboken, but when I was thinking about a pose, two things came to my mind: doing the Ovari pose or Avant Strash. The Ovari pose seemed too obvious, so I chose the Avant Strash, and let me tell you, the Epyon definitely delivers with or without an action base. Now, I will also address two important articulation points: the wings and the shoulders. The wings have a lot of range of movement in various planes, front to back, up to bottom, and even rotation. They also spread a little bit more to display them fully open. This is important not only for looks but also for stability. You can move them ever so slightly to counterbalance the rest of the body and be able to pose it without using any action base. The other important joints are the ones in the shoulder. They're a double joint that allows you to extend the arm to the outside, thus giving you much more range of movement while maintaining a natural look. This, while not as mechanically important for stability, makes your poses look that much better without the fear of breaking the figure. The Real Grade line has definitely become Bandai's new powerhouse in terms of mechanical engineering and redesigns of mobile suits. Too bad that this means that we have fewer figures of this line per year. At first, I didn't like the RG line mostly because I don't like small figures, but slowly and surely they have grown into me. I think I now have built more 1/144th scale kits than 1/100th. Does this mean that you need to buy the RG Epyon? Well, if you like the design and think that the Master Grade is too old for you, then go for it. If you like the design and don't have that much space, go for it. If you like the 1/144th line, definitely go for it. In fact, without being too redundant, the only reason that you may not want this figure is 1. Not enough money, which is something everyone should understand, and 2. Disliking the design. Aside from those two reasons, the RG Epyon is a fun and easy build that will probably give you a couple of days of pure enjoyment. Anyway, let me know in the comment section if you like this style of review that isn't a model kit review nor a mecha design analysis. It's mostly something in between. By all means, leave your suggestions of posing and anything else that you may think of, and as you may or may not know, my name is Absa and we can continue the conversation over at Twitter, where you can follow me at Absalonicas, and on Instagram, where I post pictures of my figures, my cats, and sometimes even myself. Until next time, always remember that in fiction lies power, so let's use it to forge a new type of story, our hero's journey.